What is up, guys? My name is Jason Ankin and this is my YouTube channel. Decided to do a little nature walk and talk today. I've driven all the way down to Annalong Forest, which is about 50 miles away from my house. It's a nice frosty day, just at the foothills of the Mourne Mountains. And I'm going to do a little, like I said, a little nature walk and talk. Show you a little bit of nature and basically dump a little bit of the contents of my brain onto my YouTube channel, something that I've been thinking about, and it's kind of relevant in these very, very strange times. So yeah, just hanging about. Found a camping spot that we were in. Me and my friends went on a camping trip here in early December, and I'm back at the spot. It's a pretty good spot. It's very, very sunny today. Very, very clear skies. So it's almost like a really sunny, chilly kind of day. So basically, what I'm looking to talk about today, it's just another kind of a little bit of a philosophical deep dive. It's something I've been thinking about probably for years. And it has a lot of relevancy today, and basically it's this idea of dependency on the system. Obviously, this is kind of relevant today because there's a lot of wild changes going on in the world, and a lot of institutions such as governments, corporations, medical institutions and stuff like this are all making these really, really big changes that are all essentially having an impact on every individual's life in some way, shape or form, including my own. And it's always something that I've known in the back of my mind that you can't, the more you rely upon the system, the more you rely upon society, the more susceptible and more vulnerable you are to societal changes. So when something happens, for example, the last big problem that occurred within society was probably the 2007 and 2008 credit crunch, and again that impacted me individually, and I'm sure it impacted a lot of people that are probably watching the stream. And now we have this other thing, we have this pandemic thing kicking in, and it's impacting every individual's life, and in large part it's because we are so dependent on the system. We're dependent on corporations, we're dependent on the government, we're dependent on the health system for our survival. You see, essentially, before we created civilization, it was really man interfacing with nature. So you have us, I guess, the wise ape, the Homo sapien, interfacing with nature, and it was a direct interrelationship. So people back in the past were much more, had much more. They had much more responsibility. In order to acquire food, they had to maybe grow their own food. In order to keep warm, they had to build fires. In order to sort of have shelter, they had to chop down trees and build their own houses and stuff like this. But in today's day and age, we don't do that. We depend on corporations and governments and various institutions to meet all of our needs. And the problem is when these governments and these corporations and these institutions start to shut down or collapse as a consequence of some natural phenomena, such as maybe like we're experiencing today, which is obviously a virus. All of a sudden, when you're dependent on the system for your money, you're dependent on the system for fuel, you're dependent on the system for water, you're dependent on it for medical treatment, and you're dependent on it for things like food and all of these type of stuff. And when these systems begin to systematically shut off, we realize how vulnerable we are. We realize that we are basically exposed, and it's almost in a kind of way, it's like it highlights the fact that we probably in part we need to have a better balance of using the system for what it's good for, but then also having other things on the side, so that if things do start to collapse, we can have land to generate our own food, or generate our own fuel, or generate our own electricity and stuff. And that's basically something I've always thought about for a number of years. And it's not just, the pandemic literally just highlighted it, and it's made it very, I guess, visceral and very obvious. So the average person now is starting to realize, yeah, it's not really a good idea depending on some corporation for my money to pay for my bills and stuff like this. A lot of people are starting to realize that they need to have alternatives for when the systems does collapse, so that people can sustain their lives and stuff like that. And another one of the issues that you tend to experience by being dependent on the system, a lot of times it actually has a detrimental effect on people's physical health. It has a detrimental effect on mental health. It has a detrimental effect on people's character. And the reason why is because in order for the system, so to speak, to sustain itself, it needs long-term growth. So for example, in order for a corporation to be able to sustain itself, it has to continually and perpetually grow. And because it has to continually perpetually grow, what it has to do, it has to come up with more and more cunning ways and devious ways to basically get people to buy into their products and services. And in large part, that has a big effect on affecting people's character. There's a big effect on affecting people's morality. It actually encourages you to be immoral. It encourages you to weaken your character. I mean, for example, if you take like superstores, superstores will give you cheap food. So what they're doing is they're basically pandering to your greed. And then on top of that, they're going to give you a lot of cheap food. And what that's doing, it's pandering to your gluttony. And then on top of that, they will even deliver the food right to your door. And what that is, it's pandering to your sloth. So basically, not only do we need to rely upon these corporations for our food, our medical treatment, electricity, Wi-Fi, heating, our housing, our jobs, all of these different things. But in order for these things to actually sustain long-term growth, they actually have to encourage you to be immoral and to damage your own character, because how can a corporation sustain its growth if you're not buying a lot of their products and services? And this is a lot of the things you start to see in today's day and age when you have a lot of these problems, such as obesity, and you have like the increase in mental health problems. And you're now starting to even see, by virtue of people using the medical system for their whole lives, now kids are being born with health conditions, and as soon as they're born, they go straight on to medicine, and they'll be dependent on that medicine for the rest of their life. And it's just this, it becomes this kind of thing where not only do you depend on these corporations and systems, but not only that, the more and more we actually use them, because they need to sustain long-term economic growth, the more and more detrimental they actually become to our health, physically, mentally, and you could even say ethically. So that's another issue with being wholly dependent on these systems, is that not only do they go out of their way to meet all of your needs, but they do it so excessively that it actually starts to become detrimental to your health, and to your well-being. Ooh, very snowy around here. I have to cross this river to get to the other side. Oh. I've been here before, so I do know where I'm going. I get across there and up into this forest. Getting deeper into the forest, and I find this structure. I have been here before, a couple months ago, and the structure was here the last time I was here. It's a little bit more developed. Looks very semi-permanent. There's a little used fire pit there. See, there's some stuff on the inside. What have you got? Don't know if you can see that. Some cordage. More cordage, pans. Spade. Water. There's a beer. Cling film. Thermo blankets. Interesting. It's very well built. There's been a lot of hours of work into that. I think he's still working on it. Whoever's working on that is probably trying to get that all insulated. Wonder who it is. I think this is the second structure that I've seen in this forest in the last couple of months. Very similar design, so whoever it is might be one person or a group of people that are doing it. This guy's not dependent on the system. This is what I'm talking about. Being able to survive off your own wits and off your own skills. Nice work. The way that you could look at this is that sort of this idea of being dependent on the system versus having more independence. You could actually look at it kind of like a continuum. So on one extreme you've got individuals who are very independent. You could say, if you take it right to the extreme, people who are basically like living in the woods as hunter-gatherers. Who are totally living off the land, who maybe go fishing and, chop their own wood, living off grid and stuff like this, which is doable because I actually watch a few YouTube channels of people that actually do this, so it is a thing. And then on the other end of the equation, you've got people who are extremely dependent. They absolutely need the system for their survival. They need the health system, they need the government, they need corporations for just about every single thing that they do in their day-to-day life. And you can see this, like I said, it's almost like a continuum. Extreme independence versus extreme dependence. And then you've got every kind of different gradation in between, all different grades and different levels. And basically what you're trying to do, at least this is something that I really want to implement. I'm by no means super independent. In fact, you could actually say that a lot of my survival is actually, I'm very dependent on the system, but I'm aware that it is a problem, and especially, like I said, it's very visceral today because of the whole pandemic thing. So what you should sort of aim to do is you should aim to move yourself along this continuum from dependence to progressively more and more independence. And obviously, a lot of people will go from one extreme to the next and think that the solution is to become super independent and just live totally off grid and just screw the system completely. I personally don't actually agree with that strategy. I think a mixed strategy is probably the best. You want to almost be right in the middle where you're using the system for its good things, but you're in a position that if the system collapsed, you could transition into being independent very, very rapidly. And then when things get better, you can start to come back again. You don't have to be dogmatic and have this kind of one-way approach to doing things. You can always kind of have a mix and have a balance. Use the best, like electricity is good, Wi-Fi is good, plumbing is good. Sometimes being able to go to superstores and buy essential things is good. But if those distribution chains collapse, then what do you do? Or you haven't got an alternative. So that's why it's important to maybe think of ways that you can actually become more independent from the system. So if things do actually break down, you can easily and adaptively transition into a more independent way of living. And then, like I said, when things get better, you can basically start reusing the system again. So I'm hanging out in this camping spot. I've just seen there's actually still some hot embers. There must have been someone here, like literally last night. It seems to be, that must have been where their tent was. It's just right on the edge of like Annalong Forest. We're pretty much at the foothills of the Mournes. If you see up there, big snowy peak, that is, I believe that is Slieve Binion, Big Binion, Wee Binion. This here is Slieve Lamigan. I actually climbed this a couple of weeks ago. And then in the distance there, that big white snowy mountain, that's the tallest mountain in Northern Ireland. That is known as Slieve Donard. And that snowy cap looks really, really appealing to me. I might actually get my friends, if it's still frosty, I might actually get my friends to try and do Donard next weekend. But we shall see, because it would be really cool to climb Donard when it's really, really snowy like this. But yeah, we are pretty much in the foothills of the Mournes right now. I'm going to continue walking up this way, and that'll take me to a path, and then I'll be able to start walking back towards my car. But yeah, really, really good day. Super clear skies, but very, very frosty and cold. So it's kind of like a bright, cold day. I just realised this mountain, the one that I pointed out, that I said was Donard, this is actually Slieve Comida. This here one is Slieve Donard. I couldn't see it when I was down there because it was behind this hill. But then when I walked up a bit, I realised that's Donard there. That's the big one. So that's the biggest mountain in Northern Ireland. I think it's just over 3,000 feet, but it looks brilliant. It's like covered in snow. I want to see if my friends would be willing to climb that maybe next week. It'd be cool to do it in the snow. I think we have climbed it once in the snow before, years and years and years ago. But here's a look a little higher up over Annalong Forest. So Annalong Forest is all the way down there. Just tracked up that. I'm going basically up here, up to the edge of this path. Once I get to there will be a path at the bottom of this mountain, and then I'll beeline it left and all the way back around, back down to my car, wherever it is. And essentially how you move along this continuum, this kind of dependency-independency continuum, is there's this saying that sort of your freedom, for example, is in direct proportion to the amount of responsibility that you're going to take on. So for example, if you want to stop eating food from the corporations, let's say, then what you need to do is you need to acquire some land and start basically making your own food. If you don't want to put your kids through the public education system, for example, you might want to start considering the idea of homeschooling. If you want to go off grid, then you need to think of a way to generate your own electricity. So every time that you basically go off the system or go off something that the system provides, you need to meet that need, because if the system is meeting the need for you and you want to be independent, then you have to actually meet all of the needs that the system is meeting for you. So there's, again, like I said, there's this relationship between your responsibility, your level of responsibility, and how that correlates with your level of freedom. So if you want total freedom, total independence, then you need to take on 100% responsibility for all of your needs. Just think like that guy who built that shelter in the forest that I was just in. You know, that's an individual. If you go into a forest and you're completely alone in nature, then your freedom and your survival is 100% in your hands, and it is not dependent on any of the systems. So, like I said, how you move up this continuum from full dependence to being fully independent is by progressively taking more and more and more and more responsibility. And I'm by no means like super independent. Like I said to you, like I'm very dependent on the system, but I'm very aware that I'm dependent on the system. I'm even more aware by virtue of the fact of this global pandemic that's now on, and it's affecting every individual on the planet. So my aim or my goal in life is to become progressively more and more free and more independent. And how I intend on doing that is by becoming more and more responsible. You know, one of my big goals in life is to get land. If I could have two goals, like say for example, I would love to be able to create my own food. So if I'm ever going to buy a property, I want some acreage, probably about 3 to 5 acres. And then that will enable me to make my own food so that I won't have to buy food off the system as much. And one of the other things that I don't like is I'm not a fan of the public education system. If I ever do eventually go on to have kids, I really think it is, at least today, it's a lot smarter and a lot wiser to actually homeschool your kids, because I really don't think the public education system is of any benefit anymore. And but I don't think I'm going to be able to generate any better electricity. I don't think I'm going to be able to generate or harvest any better water. So I might still use the electrical system and stuff like that, and still use plumbing and still use Wi-Fi. Like I said, I'm more of a believer in a kind of a mixed method rather than kind of a one side or the other. I think you should be somewhere in the middle, so you have the flexibility to sort of go either side depending on the circumstances. And that's something that I wanted to basically get off my chest. I think it's kind of relevant today, and I decided to do it while I'm out on this walk up in these beautiful like Mourne mountains, and I am nearly done. Probably got about another 45 minutes walking until I get back to my car and drive back to my apartment. It's a nice Saturday, so this is kind of decided to do this on the weekend. Stand by this river, it's absolutely frozen over. So it is all the way down. It's very frosty. So that is really it, guys. I'm going to finish off my walk here. I'm just going down one of the well-known paths in Mournes alongside Slieve Binion. I'm going to head back to my car and drive home. Oh, it's very icy. It's very uneven along here. But I really appreciate it for watching. If you watched all the way to the end, you know, I don't post regularly on here. I would like to get into, I say this pretty much in every video, that I would like to post much more regularly, but does require a bit of work to record a video and edit it and upload it and all that type of stuff. And I've just got other things in my life that I need to focus my attention and effort on. So yeah, this is just my little philosophical rant about people and sort of being dependent on the system, and while it could be detrimental, and you should really sort of strive to aim to be a little bit more independent. I'm not saying you have to go live in the woods and live off the land and stuff like that. If that's your thing, go for it. But like I said, I'm much more on the camp of having like a mixed method, where I think you should have everything you need in place, kind of preppy. You kind of live off the system. The best parts of the system, use the best parts of the system, but then you have all of the other stuff ready to go. And this is kind of why it's frustrated me with this whole pandemic thing, because I was looking to, in 2020, I was looking to get into a full-time permanent career, which I wasn't able to do because of the lack of job opportunities in my industry, which is basically the health and fitness industry. The type of job that I wanted to work in was exercise referral, full-time exercise referral, and I only seen 3 jobs all last year, and they were all way too far away from my house, like at least an hour and a half, 2-hour drive away, in the west coast of Northern Ireland. And I want to move more towards the east coast to Belfast. So yes, I'm going to finish off my walk. I really appreciate you watching this video, and do all of that good stuff, that like, that comment, and subscribe. And remember, your feedback, your positive feedback, gives me more motivation to start posting more consistently and more regularly. My channel is steadily growing, even with the little effort that I'm putting into it. If I put more into it, it would grow much more rapidly. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video, whenever that is, hopefully sooner rather than later. Bye.